Seems like basically everyone's available from the Buffalo Sabres this offseason, so let's go window shopping and see what we can pick up for the Blue Jackets for cheap. That's what we're doing on today's Locked On Blue Jackets.
You're Locked On Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am, as always, your host, Jay Foster, here to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly about your favorite team and mine, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Before we get things started, I want to thank everyone for making this your first listen of the day every single day. Locked On Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms and over on YouTube. Before we get things started, I also have to let you know today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. So, everything is bad in Buffalo Sabres land. Again, always, eternally, maybe. But it seems like it's getting kind of dicey over there. It seems like there are a bunch of players that they're thinking about moving. There are a bunch of players that are thinking about, asking out or moving on. So I thought, like any self-respecting NHL team, the Blue Jackets should probably try and see what they can fleece out of the Buffalo Sabres before someone else gets there first. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to continue with our mini-ish series. It's not really a mini series anymore. It's a full-blown series of what players should the Blue Jackets be trying to acquire this summer, right? And we've looked at a bunch of UFAs so far. We looked at Jason Robertson yesterday, who's not an RFA, sorry, has a year left on his contract, but is, again, maybe available and maybe not. Conflicting reports on that. And there's a bunch of guys on the Buffalo Sabres that, people should, or not people, NHL teams should be queuing up to try and get hold of, right? So we're going to talk about a couple of defensemen. There's a couple of forwards I want to talk about. There's a goalie I want to talk about. Let's start with the forwards because they're at the top of the list. And there's two guys that I'm kind of paying attention to here in terms of the Buffalo Sabres. It's the two guys that everyone is paying attention to in terms of being available. Alex Tuch is a 29-year-old winger / center making $4.75 million and is a UFA next summer. The other, more intriguing to me, prospect is JJ Peterka is apparently not super happy in Buffalo and is potentially an option to whether you offer sheet him, whether you make a trade, again, do a sign and trade, get hold of his rights, whatever. But apparently he is also an option, and he's of the two forwards, he's the one I'm more excited about. Alex Tuch, I think, is a very good player. And if the Blue Jackets somehow manage to get hold of him, I wouldn't be mad about that. He had 67 points in 82 games for the Sabres this season. I believe was the main piece of the Jack Eichel trade back in the day. Former first round pick, has 382 points in 536 career games. And since coming to Buffalo has been pretty good. Not quite a point a game, but near enough, right? Had 36 goals this season, which would have led the Blue Jackets, right? Is a pretty fun player. Comes with a year to figure it out. He's under contract until next summer. So, if you think that you are the team that can, sign him to long term, if that's what you want, then go for it. My worry is, and it's kind of the worry that we've talked about with all of the players of a similar age, right? Is, do you want to lock Alex Tuch up for the next 8 years? Depending on, what the contract he wants is. Like I said, he's making just under $5 million at the minute. He's probably going to want a raise from that. That I believe is only his second contract. Yeah, that was the contract he signed out of his ELC. So what Is that an option? The answer is yes. But I think there is a better option on the Sabres. And he is a guy that I know a couple of everydayers have showed interest in. Alex Tuch, I mean. He's big. He is, like, again, he scores goals, which, like, frankly is, on the one hand, is the most important thing. On the other hand, the Blue Jackets didn't struggle to score goals this season. But I'm never going to turn down a goal scorer, right? Because who's to say that every goal scorer won't go cold next season? You can never have enough goal scorers. That being said, if there is a different forward that the Blue Jackets could acquire from the Buffalo Sabres, I personally think JJ Peterka is the guy that you should be calling on. He had 68 points in 77 games this season, is only 23 years old, 150 points in 238 games, and really kind of popped this season, I thought. 27 goals, which was one off his career high, which he set the previous season. Saw a big jump in his ice time, big jump in his power play efficiency as well. 18 of those 68 points were on power play, which again is not nothing. And he is an RFA who I believe does not approach UFA. His UFA season is 2029, so he's still got, I believe, at least 4 years of team control. I believe he's coming off his ELC. Yeah, so there's a lot of flexibility there. And honestly, it sounds like he's kind of done with being in Buffalo, which I don't know that I can really blame him. I know that I sit here in a glass house of underperforming, team watching, but I just there's something there, right? I think there is a player there. Plays left wing. Like, if you can acquire him, and again, maybe you throw him with Fantilli and Johnson, maybe you see if he's got what it takes to hang with the big boys in Monahan and Marchenko. Not that Fantilli is not a big boy yet, but he's going to be, right? Peterka is 6 years younger than Tuch, will almost certainly be cheaper to both to pay actual money and also probably to acquire, because from the sounds of things, he wants out. And if I know that, then probably all of the GMs know that, right? So there goes your leverage. And I think he fits in with the age of this team a little bit better than Tuch. Like, I'm not saying that you go out and you acquire a 29-year-old and, like, that's, the oldest man alive and everything is, it's the worst thing you could do is acquire old players. Like, you need veterans. You need veteran players. And I wouldn't be upset if the Blue Jackets went out and got Alex Tuch. I do just think that I would lean more towards Peterka just because of cost, because of youth. And also, frankly, I just think he's really, really fun to watch. I like Alex Tuch as a player. Clearly very accomplished. But JJ Peterka is just really fun to watch. Scored a goal against the Blue Jackets the last time these two teams faced off against each other. And if I remember rightly, it was a really annoying goal that I remember being like, man, I hope I don't have to put up with this every time we play the Sabres for the next 15 years. And it sounds like we won't. But of all of the players that I'm going to look at today, I think JJ Peterka might be at the top of my list. It's going to be between him and one other player, but for my money anyway, JJ Peterka is a guy that you want to. JJ Peterka is a guy that will grow with the team. Tuch, I think, will be good now and probably start to decline in a couple of years. Peterka ostensibly hasn't even really hit his peak yet, so it's a real kind of delayed gratification, right? Do you want good player now, or do you want better player in 3 years? And the Blue Jackets are in a weird place at the minute where you could quite happily go either way, I think. Ideally, you want good player in 1 to 2 years, but I personally think that JJ Peterka is the move over Alex Tuch. I will say the one knock on him is the Blue Jackets People say that the Blue Jackets need a little bit more size, and I kind of go back and forth on how much I agree with this. But obviously, Alex Tuch is big boy, like 6'4" and 1,000,000 pounds. JJ Peterka, 6 foot, 190 pounds. Like, do the Blue Jackets need another small winger? Possibly not, but he's not that small, you know? He's not 5'9" and 160 pounds. Not that there's anything wrong with that, obviously, but I can see where people are coming from in terms of wanting to add more size up front with Tuch, but I still think I lean Peterka. Take a quick break, and then when we get back, there's a couple of defensemen that I want to talk about that could be available and that the Blue Jackets probably should make a call about. So we're going to do that in just a second here on Locked On Blue Jackets. First, I'm going to tell you about Monarch Money. Do you ever check your bank account and wonder where did all your money go? Between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, it's super easy to lose track, and that's where Monarch Money comes in. They are your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is not just a budgeting app, it is a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you can stop just managing your money and start building wealth. I have been going to the store for little treats a lot recently, and Monarch yelled at me about it. So now I have been doing that less, saving more, budgeting smarter. And I don't have to juggle multiple apps. Previously, I would have to go to my banking app, and then go to a budgeting app, and then a spreadsheet that I built myself, then back to my banking app. You can do all of that in Monarch. You can check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for 50% off your first year. Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jackets. We're talking about the Buffalo Sabres today and how everyone and their mother is kind of circling them like vultures right now. And I was like, well, why don't I get involved in that? So we've talked about the forwards. We're going to move on and talk about a couple of defensemen now, one of whom is a pending RFA. The other, I believe, literally just got locked up last summer to an extremely expensive and long contract, and apparently they regret it already, which is surprising to me. But let's talk about Owen Power. 22 years old, former first overall pick, very good friends with Kent Johnson. They went to the University of Michigan together and were basically inseparable by all accounts. Owen Power is currently on, I think he just finished year one of a 7-year contract that costs $8.35 million right up until the year 2031. So big contract, obviously. Sorry, he just finished year 2 of that. No? Yes, he just finished year 1 of that. I can read. Just straight up, I can read. That is a big risk of a contract, I think. Unfortunately, that does seem like how things are going these days. Owen Power did not have a bad season by any means. He had, it was almost half a point a game as a defenseman. I think the main problem that Buffalo Sabres fans have with Owen Power is he's not Rasmus Dahlin, right? Which is not his fault. And I think he probably did have a bit of a down year this year. He struggled, but so did everyone on the team. I'm looking at, obviously, plus minus is not the be all and end all of this team. But when you look at Rasmus Dahlin and Byram being plus 11 and Owen Power being minus 13, I can see why fans are frustrated by that. He only scored 7 goals, which is a fine amount of goals for a defenseman, right? But I think if you're paying almost $8.5 million, then you probably want a little bit more than that. Does play a fair amount of ice time as well, so you'd want to think that what you're getting for your ice time is worth almost $8.5 million that you pay for him, especially considering I don't know that I would consider Owen Power a really offensive defenseman. I wouldn't consider him a particularly defensive guy either. He really is just kind of, at his best, he's a two-way guy that is good at both, but doesn't ever really, like, you're never going to see, like, Jacob Slavin numbers, and you're never going to see, like, Zach Werenski, Kel McCart, Quinn Hughes numbers from him, I don't think, right? Decent on the power play, surprisingly good on the penalty kill, but at even strength really just kind of is average. Grades out in at hockeyviz.com as about a second pairing guy, which I don't know that I necessarily want to pay $8.5 million for a second pairing guy. However, I do wonder what happens if you pair him with a guy like Matejchuk, and really let one of them lean into. I don't mind which way around this goes, but let one of them lean into the offense and let one of them lean into the defense. I think you could see something akin to like the first couple of years of Werenski and Jones, right? Where if one of them was on the offense, the other one was doing the defense, and vice versa, right? I'm a big Owen Power fan. I was surprised that the team was thinking about moving him. I feel like there've been murmurs about this for a while now. I distinctly remember talking about this around about the trade deadline. Is Owen Power might be available. Should you go and get him? And I still think that, like, yeah, probably. But that I understand that, like, that is a hefty price tag, and he's also probably going to be expensive. And it falls back into, well, what do you do with the defense? If you want to bring both Fabro and Provorov back, you can't go out and pay for, an Owen Power, because then you're going to be paying Werenski 9.5. You're still paying, excuse me, you're still paying Severson like 6.5 or whatever it is. Matejchuk's going to be making bank in a couple of years. You've got Owen Power making this money. That is a lot of big contract on the back end, right? And, like, I get it, you have to pay for good players, but I don't necessarily know that Owen Power is where the money should go, even though I would very much like to have him on the team. The other problem also with Power, and also with the other defensemen that we're going to talk about, is that they're both left defensemen. The Blue Jackets really could do with a right defenseman, because at the minute, their best options at right defense are pending UFAs. So, like, Fabro's a right defenseman. He might be gone. Provorov is a left defenseman masquerading as a right defenseman. He might also be gone, right? So if both of those guys walk for whatever reason, you can't go into the season with Damon Severson and Erica Branson as your top right defenseman. Someone's going to have to play on their off wing, on their offside, or you can go out and get a right defenseman, right? Owen Power is not that. I don't know if he can play on his offside. I haven't super looked into that, but he is an option that, again, if the Blue Jackets went out and acquired him, like, price dependent, I'd probably be like, yeah, sure, let's go for it. The other player is someone that, again, has been mentioned as potentially on the move for a while now, and is someone that a lot of teams are or should be interested in. And that's Bo Byram, who's coming off of a 3-year, $3.85 million contract. Spent the first 4 years of his career with the Colorado Avalanche, got traded to the Buffalo Sabres a couple of years ago. I don't remember who for off the top of my head. He's a pending RFA. He is only 23, which Owen Power is only 22 as well, by the way. So, like, both of these defensemen are extremely young, and also probably, again, haven't even hit their prime, right? Byram was one of the better guys for Buffalo this season, I feel like. Again, played a ton of minutes, had 38 points in 82 games, which is probably a little bit low for a guy like Byram. Something I did find interesting is just how much HockeyViz.com's model does not like him. It basically says that he is bad offensively and worse defensively, and grades out as worse than a third pairing defenseman, which I find interesting because that's not what I've seen from basically anyone. So I would love to know, like, the model ostensibly accounts for, quality of teammate, quality of competition, quality of coaching. If you're playing for a bad team, it should even out a little bit. But even playing for a bad team, it seems like Bo Byram is not great by this model's standard, which just happens to be the model I use. And I'm not going to sit here and say that this model is the be all and end all, right? Because there are a lot of very smart people that like Bo Byram as a defenseman a lot. I think he is fine and has potential. And I think he probably, again, if he wants out of Buffalo, I think you'll pay less for Byram than you will for Power. You'll have him under team control to decide a contract as well. You're not going to be, locked into a contract like you are with Power. But again, he is a left defenseman, right? I don't know if he can play on his right side, but I personally would love to have at least one legitimate right defenseman instead of just having a bunch of left defensemen masquerading, because the Blue Jackets have a lot of left defensemen that just kind of play the right side. So I would be happy-ish with either of these players, I think. I was trying to decide which one I would prefer, and I do think I am higher on Power as a player, but I think Byram probably fits into the plan slightly more, just in terms of like cap flexibility and things like that. But I still think you want a right defenseman, and both these guys are left defensemen, right? So while they're both kind of intriguing, I think I'm not gonna break the bank for either of these guys. I don't think. I'm still way more interested in Peterka than I am in either of these guys. So if you can, if that's what you get from Buffalo, if you manage to get Bo Byram, sure. But I personally would be making the call about JJ Peterka. And then if that doesn't work, swiveling to, oh, well, what about this guy? What about this guy? Etc. And there's one other guy that I want to talk about, and that is a goalie. And this is a goalie that I have kind of flip-flopped on in terms of, is he right for Columbus? But we're going to take a quick break, and then when we get back, we're going to talk about Devon Levi, who is somehow the third-string goalie in Buffalo, despite being really quite good. So we'll talk about that in just a second here on Locked On Blue Jackets. Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jackets. We're talking about the Buffalo Sabres and what we would pick from their still warm corpse if the rumors are true and basically everyone is available, right? We talked about forwards, we talked about defensemen. I want to talk about a goalie now, and that is another pending RFA, and that's Devon Levi, who somehow managed to become the third string goalie behind Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, who is locked up for a crazy contract, and James Reimer, who is 37 years of age. Now, Reimer, I believe Reimer was pretty good for the Sabres this season. Like for the Sabres, and again, I understand that I live in a glass house of goaltending, but like James Reimer had a 901 save percentage this year. Levi struggled in very limited action. Started 8 games for the Sabres, only won 2 of them. Had an 872 save percentage and a 4.12 goals against average. I don't know that they put him in the best position to succeed, because your starting goalie only has an 887 save percentage, right? So something is clearly, like, the goaltending in Buffalo is clearly suffering, I assume, from the fact that the rest of the team is not very good, or the team has good individual players, but just doesn't seem to be working. And I don't know whether that's a coaching thing or whether that's a systems thing, or like those are kind of the same thing, but you know what I mean, right? It is in the AHL that Devon Levi really, really shone this season. And I'm just pulling up the regular season numbers at the minute, because he was one of the better goalies for an AHL team this season. He was, where is he? There he is. Had a 919 save percentage, was just behind our very own Jet Greaves. Had 25 wins, 13 losses, and 4 overtime losses, and pretty, like, again, was a very good goalie on a very good Rochester team, in fairness. Jet Greaves was a very good goalie on a kind of mid Monsters team. Devon Levi was very good. I believe was named to the AHL All-Star game, but I could be wrong about that off the top of my head. Kind of struggled a little bit in the playoffs. Had a quote unquote only a 9-10 save percentage. Went 5-3. Lost the Americans, I believe, got swept by the Laval Rocket, or no, they would have. I think they won. No, it took them to game 5, I think. So, but it wasn't to be. I think there's potential there. I definitely think there's a goalie there, and it comes back to this is not really a conversation about Devon Levi himself, right? This is more of a conversation about what do you want the goaltending to look like in Columbus this season, right? Is your plan put Jet Greaves in goal in net for 50 of those 82 games and find like an old guy to back him up, right? Like find his James Reimer, let's say. And I'm not suggesting that we're going to sign James Reimer. But like, is that what you do? Or do you go out and try and get someone like a Devon Levi who has that potential to have a 1A, 1B situation with Columbus, and that can potentially, again, be really good for your AHL team if it turns out he's not ready, right? Like, there's nothing stopping the Blue Jackets from going out and getting more than one goalie, but looking at the goalies that are available, like the UFA market for goalies is abysmal. The RFA market, there are some guys there, like I believe Levi Marilainen from Ottawa is available, and there was another guy that's available that I don't remember off the top of my head is a pending RFA, but again, a guy that you could potentially make a swing on. But I think Devon Levi is an interesting option for Columbus. I don't know if he's still waivers exempt. I believe he is. I don't know when he will stop being waivers exempt because the waivers rules are stupid. But he's only played like less than 50 NHL games. Like his NHL debut was in the 22-23 season. He played 7 games then, played 23 last year, and then played 9 this year, right? So he's not like completely like untested, but I would really like to see him behind a competitive team. And whether that's the Blue Jackets or not kind of remains to be seen. But he's another guy that I would probably take a flyer on. Like if you could, like if we had to, I wasn't going to rank these guys, but I think like if I had to rank them, probably like JJ Peterka and Devon Levi are at the top. I still think I take Peterka over Levi, but Levi to me is a really intriguing option as a guy who did very, very well in like juniors. I believe he was an NCAA kid. I will correct myself if I'm wrong. But was a 7th round pick by the Panthers back in 2020, right? Not the biggest guy in the world. Went to Northeastern actually. Was extremely good in Northeastern. Played extremely well for Canada in the World Juniors in 2020, 2021. Actually went to Canada for the Olympics in the 2020 Olympics, which is fun. And played for Canada at the World Championships a couple of years ago as well. And again, played pretty well there in the one game that he got to play. There's something there, I think. It's really tough to tell when a player is really, really good in the AHL, but then goes to a bad NHL team and doesn't really thrive. Like, you're like, okay, is it the level of competition? Like, is he having trouble stepping up to that next level of competition? Or is he a bad fit for this team and he's, suffering because of the team around him, right? And it's especially tough for goalies, I feel like. So Devon Levi is a guy that I really, really think I would be super interested to see on literally any other NHL team, because I do think that there is potential there. Again, not the biggest guy in the world, only 6 foot tall. And I don't know whether that's actually 6 foot or like Jet Greaves 6 foot, but there's a goalie in there, I think. Like I feel pretty confident that there is a goalie in there. Whether he will be a goalie for the Blue Jackets or not remains to be seen, but I think his time in Buffalo is approaching the end. If he can't crack the lineup behind Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen and 37-year-old James Reimer, like I feel like the writing might be a little bit on the wall. So why not start a new wall? Come to Columbus. It's fun. We need goalies, right? And again, it really does come down to what does this team want from their goaltending duo, right? Do they want two young guys that can split time, or do they want to put all of their eggs in the Jet Crew basket, as promising as that basket is, and find a shooter tutor for the other 35 games of the season, right? And the Elvis situation is still the Elvis situation, but I don't know, man. Like Devon Levi, I looked at him a couple of months ago and was like, oh, probably not. And then I keep going back and being like, you know what? Maybe. So maybe it will be. We'll find out. We are getting closer and closer to the draft, by which time we'll figure out what the Blue Jackets are doing with those first round picks. The rumors keep buzzing, and before you know it, in like 3 weeks, it's going to be free agency. So we'll find out what's going on sooner rather than later. It's all going to pop off in a couple of weeks, which will be very exciting. That's kind of it from me today. I will not be back tomorrow because it's Friday today. Hooray. I'll be back on Monday with another episode of Locked on Blue Jackets. And honestly, we might talk, and providing he doesn't get traded, we might talk about Marco Rossi for a little bit, who is another very promising top 6 guy that is apparently potentially on the move, because everyone in the Central Division has lost their minds this summer, I guess. So we'll talk about that on Monday. Thank you for listening to this episode, for making it your first listen of the day every single day. Locked on Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms. We're over on YouTube, and you can find me on Blue Sky at JAKOBFORSTER. You can find the show at LO_Blue Jackets on Twitter. And thank you for listening, making us your first listen of the day every single day. Until Monday, make sure you stay locked on.